talk about the Cybertruck design. How did this design come to be?
The Cybertruck is one of these rare moments where, in a way, form followed function. A lot of times we put the form in front of the function, especially in the automotive world, and it's really tough to mix the two. But Cybertruck is really born out of the idea of a different way of manufacturing a material that put the toughness on the outside. So we really wanted to use stainless steel as a material so that the hardest part of the vehicle was on the outside, not the delicate paint. And it felt right for a truck that's used in like a Swiss Army knife in any kind of environment. Has to be tough. So stainless steel is really tough to form, especially when you make it bulletproof or thicker to withstand impacts and not be damaged. And so we really looked at new ways of manufacturing it. You could only break form and form it in one direction. You can't do compound curves or things with the thickness of the stainless steel that we're using. So it really led us to a design that was really planar, really simplistic, and was also a chance to break the paradigm of what pickup trucks have been for the past 60 or 70 years. They're the same. There's kind of this three-box shape. And we just thought from an aerodynamic perspective, having a covered back, a sloping roof would also be helpful. And oddly enough, it may not look it, but the Cybertruck is an incredibly aerodynamic vehicle.
I'm curious if you have a favorite design, favorite feature, something that you're most proud of.
Favorite one is the one that's coming. I think that we can't talk about.
Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today, a quick tip shared on Reddit. So if you're experiencing this issue with the black trim on your Tesla, you can apparently use these stainless steel wipes or spray to take care of it. So there's a before and there's the after, but just be careful with the wipes. Try not to get it on the paint if you can. There are two new Sentry mode features. The first one will be the ability to turn off the camera-based detection. So rather than getting a ton of notifications if you're parked in a busy place, you can turn that off so it'll only go off if basically your car is broken into, the glass is shattered, someone shakes your car, something physical like that. The second new feature for Sentry mode is the ability to adjust the length of the clips once an event is triggered. Before it was static, you couldn't change it, so this will give users more flexibility to manage the storage. Back in 2020 in China, Tesla was dealing with a smear campaign from different online publications. Good news, at least some of them are not getting away with it. One of the news outlets was calling Giga Shanghai a modern-day sweatshop, saying there were inhumane working conditions, defective parts that actually put Tesla customers' lives at risk. So in response, Tesla filed a lawsuit, which they won, so Ping West, the news outlet, had to take down the original article from all of its websites, had to also publicly apologize, and pay Tesla $14,000. It's good to see Tesla standing up for itself, and I still hope that eventually Tesla's lawyers go after Dan O'Dowd next. The California Department of Transportation, or Caltrans, has purchased 399 Tesla Model 3s, all rear-wheel drive variants. This deal is the largest known EV fleet order from a US government department at the federal or state level. Caltrans' reasoning for this purchase: it provided the best value overall for taxpayers. They considered safety ratings, driving range, resale value, powertrain warranty, and of course the low fuel and maintenance costs. Caltrans has already taken delivery of 236 of these Model 3s, and they're expecting to receive the rest by the end of this year. In some unexpected news, look what's now on the Best Buy website: a Tesla wall connector selling for the same price that it sells for on the Tesla website, $400. But this is not the only product they're now listing. Best Buy will also be distributing Tesla's wall connector with the J1772 connector. Again, for the same price as you can find it on the Tesla website. Right now, both of these in my area are available within about 10 days. More distribution outside of just Tesla, wider availability, and quicker access, hopefully being able to walk into the store, grab one, and take it home, all nice features. And we know that Tesla is pushing for its newly named charging standard, the NACS, North American Charging Standard, to become the norm, so a nice subtle move on Tesla's behalf toward that goal. So my wife has been using something now for a long time, and she turned me onto it earlier this year. After a pretty hard workout, I was feeling super depleted, and she gave me this liquid IV, and I have to say, I became a believer. And now, today, Liquid IV is the sponsor of this video. A quick lesson though, the 5 electrolytes are chloride, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium. Focusing on the latter two, in our bodies we have a sodium-potassium pump that generates electrical charge in our cells to power our nerves and muscle contractions. Without enough sodium and potassium, that pump cannot work. And Liquid IV uses CTT to balance the sodium-glucose-potassium ratio to deliver water to the right places in our bodies faster. And a lot of times when people feel weak or lethargic, it can often be a sodium or potassium deficiency. I want to be clear, these hydration multipliers are a great tool for extra hydration, but not something that you need to take daily. For me, it's been great after working out, doing yard work, golfing in the heat. It's great when traveling and not eating well, if you're feeling lethargic, etc. It can be an excellent tool to rehydrate around 2 times as fast as just water alone, and it's a #1 bestseller on Amazon. So these have been super clutch to have on hand, and you don't even have to take a full packet if you don't want to. So if you want to have these Liquid IV hydration multipliers handy, I was able to get you guys 20% off if you use my code Electrified, and the link is in the description below. This was a good article from Benchmark Source on setting our expectations for this new potential lithium refinery near Corpus Christi for Tesla in Texas. First of all, don't forget Tesla is in the midst of building out its new cathode facility at Giga Austin, and remember, by 2030, North America is only expected to be producing around 3% of the overall demand for both anodes and cathodes, so having a facility like this is clearly very important. Also, if you've been watching the channel for the last few months, how big are most of these new battery factories? 20 gigawatt hours, 60 gigawatt hours, maybe 100 gigawatt hours max. And here we have Tesla moving as fast as possible to get to 1,000 gigawatt hours of battery capacity in the US, vertically integrated, meaning the anode, the cathode, and lithium refining. The new proposed lithium refinery is less than 200 miles away from Giga Austin. A decision should be made as soon as December 7th, and operations could begin by the 4th quarter of 2024. However, the chief data officer at Benchmark has said 2 years would be a quick time frame for a company with experience, and refining is not a core competency for Tesla. There are a limited number of manufacturers of the specialized equipment needed to mine and refine lithium. So even if Tesla manages to build out the refinery by the end of 2024, they might find they don't have the equipment to actually bring it online. And I would just add, there are still questions as to which process Tesla will use for this refinery. They had talked about having their own process, which we really haven't heard much about since Battery Day, so TBD. But this, of course, is a big deal and something to watch closely, because Tesla would become the first automaker to actually build its own refinery. And the EU Commission president just said lithium and rare earths will soon be more important than oil and gas. But as always, don't watch what they say, watch what they do, and the EU has been following the US with the Inflation Reduction Act, having a Critical Raw Materials Act of their own, which will be focused on lean permitting and extra funding. Franz sat down with CNBC at the Tesla exhibit at the Peterson Museum, just talking about what it was like to work for Elon, what it was like developing the Cybertruck, how he deals with some of the feedback and things that happened. We didn't really learn anything new, but it's always nice listening to him talk about certain things, so full video linked below if you're interested. This is quickly becoming the week of the semi, as Penske just took delivery of 2 of the electric e-Cascadia semis from Daimler North America. The e-Cascadia has 2 different ranges, one of up to 155 miles and the other up to 230. With single port charging, you can charge up to 180 kilowatts, and with dual port charging, that'll take you up to 270 kilowatts. So different applications, but I think tomorrow at the Tesla Semi delivery event, many people are going to have their eyes open to just how far ahead Tesla really is. Speaking of that, there's not a lot of information out there right now on this event. All I could really find so far is this from Whole Mars. 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time for this event. It should be live streamed. I don't know that for sure, but if I find out after the fact, I'll have it on Twitter. And for this reason, you should expect my upload for tomorrow to be later in the day than usual. Over the years, you may have heard about this company Lightyear. It started as a competition among students to build a solar EV. Fast forward to today, and this company is actually manufacturing the Lightyear Zero. To start, manufacturing will be taking place in Finland, and they do have CATL as a shareholder. This first variant, the Lightyear Zero, will cost around $250,000. However, in the future, they are looking to bring one to market around $30,000, which would be quite the jump down. And it seems like the more affordable version, the Lightyear 2, is the goal, with the Lightyear Zero only expected to make around $946,000. So a lot of questions remain, but definitely a big milestone. Speaking of more affordable EVs, there were a bunch of articles circulating today about Lucid announcing a new, cheaper $50,000 sedan, but in reality, this isn't necessarily news. If you go back to the end of September, we learned that Lucid was most likely planning this at some time in the future. We don't really have any detail about this potential car in the future, but I would not expect it for the next few years. RJ Scaringe recently gave a chat at the Redburn CEO conference, and I just want to highlight a few points. RJ said he's confident Rivian will be able to sell everything it makes stretching into 2024, so all good through 2023 when it comes to demand. Part of the reason I pulled the trigger on the benchmark source subscription for all of us is this. RJ said the least talked about hurdle to getting to 100% EV adoption is battery materials. And I know a lot of people are excited for the R2 platform. Now, yes, it's not expected until 2026, but this will be a much higher volume platform and expanding into global markets. But shorter term, RJ did say to expect OTA software updates that will allow range improvements for the whole lineup coming in 2023. This one's funny because yesterday I shared the video of Cruise vehicles stuck in an intersection clogging it up, and now Cruise is seeking regulatory approval to test the Origin, which does not have a steering wheel. Cruise is requesting permission to test the Origin driverless vehicle on San Francisco streets. So far, the California DMV has said there is no specified timeline for completing the review process. GM does already have plans to start building the Origin in higher volumes at its main EV plant in Detroit next year. At least with the Chevy Bolt Cruise vehicles, they still have a wheel so Cruise team members can come and drive them away if they get stuck. Well, what's going to happen when that happens to the Origin, which will undoubtedly happen? Is it a remote control type of situation? I guess we'll see soon enough. Shifting gears to why the market and Tesla stock jumped halfway through the day, it's this right here. Powell gave a speech basically saying they're expecting a 50 basis point rate hike at the December meeting. A lot of people out there will call this a Fed pivot, going from 75 basis points to only 50 basis points. I still like to view it in the purest sense, referring to a pivot as actually changing from raising rates to lowering rates, not just decreasing the rate of rate hikes. Powell said the time for moderating the pace of rate increases may come as soon as the December meeting. However, we still have unprecedented strength in the labor market and unemployment is still at historic lows. Powell said the labor market shows only tentative signs of rebalancing and wage growth remains well above levels that would be consistent with 2% inflation. So the markets may be giddy right now for a few hours, but we still have a long way to go in restoring price stability. This morning, we also got the second revision for Q3 GDP, which at an annualized pace came in at 2.9%, above the expectations of 2.7%. Now, of course, there's a ton of nuance caked into this number. However, the economy is rebounding stronger than people had been expecting. So what are we supposed to do with this number? Usually the US economy being strong is a great thing. The economy is resilient, consumers are continuing to spend money even in the face of inflation. However, again, as I've said before, this really does give the Fed more of a green light to continue raising rates, maybe not at a faster pace, but for a longer duration. And so far, when it comes to the growth of the economy, it's really the housing sector that's been crushing the GDP number. Listen to this. The pullback in spending on home building due to a quick rise in interest rates this year has shaved 1.4 percentage points off overall growth. So if the housing market just stayed the same, we would be seeing 4.3% annualized rate for GDP. So essentially consumer spending, which makes up roughly 60% of GDP, is still pretty strong despite everything going on. And it's really the housing market that's dragging down some of these GDP figures. There's been plenty of people making predictions about the economy and recessions as of late. Just keep in mind as you look at all of these, what each person's motives may be. I've seen personally more often than not, it lines up pretty well with what their motives are. Elon said the Fed needs to cut interest rates immediately. They are massively amplifying the probability of a severe recession. Look, he's probably right, but it's also true that Tesla has a much easier path ahead with lower interest rates. Chicken Genius says a severe recession is needed to cut inflation meaningfully. Well, as far as I know, he has some short positions, so he's incentivized to have a recession. And I'm just picking on these two because they're here right now, but many economists talking about the severity of the recession also subconsciously want to feel a little bit smarter than the Fed and say that, hey, they were right while the Fed was wrong. So not really actionable, but just think about this as you watch this all unfold. Neuralink update tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Neuralink will be doing a live Q&A during the event, so if you have a question you want to ask, you can reply to this tweet. It'll be linked below. This is actually really cool. We have Bosch and Mercedes set to commercially launch a valet parking service at an airport in Germany. And yes, the valet is autonomous, not a person. This will be available on certain S-Class and EQS variants using Intelligent Park Pilot. This in a parking garage in an airport in Stuttgart, again in Germany. They'll have a digital platform where you can book spaces, there will be contactless access to the garage, and automatic invoicing for your stay. This is awesome because you basically pull up to the airport, take your luggage, and you go to check-in, and then your car can drive itself through the parking garage, park itself, and do everything you need to do. This will be enabled partially from sensors that are actually installed in this garage that will interact with these Mercedes vehicles. And when you get back from your trip, you can summon your car back to you with your smartphone, and your vehicle will make its way to a predetermined pickup area. This is awesome. I love the specific use case and making the airport experience that much better. And last up for today, earlier this week when I mentioned that third shift for Giga Berlin was now going to be sooner after it was originally delayed, well, look at this. After a meeting between Elon and the Giga Berlin team, the third shift will now start in the second week of January, once again pushed back to Q1. Reporting on this one over the last few months has been a very fun ping pong game back and forth. Don't forget, check out Liquid IV linked below. They're honestly great to have on hand and they taste really good. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.